friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Marie and this is actually my first ever YouTube video, so it's pretty exciting. Today, as you can probably tell by the title, I've decided to talk about something that's really important to me and has been really influential in my life, which is taking a cross-country road trip from Virginia, which is where I live, all the way to California and all the way back. I actually did this right after I graduated from college, so 2 years ago now. It was over the course of 8.5 weeks with one of my best friends from college, Anna. We actually lived together for a year while we were in school, and then decided to do this trip afterwards together as well. So I first want to share with you guys a little snippet about the trip to kind of get you guys excited about what I'm going to talk about today and just show you a little bit of what we experienced on the trip. So here is some video footage from the trip. Hope you enjoy! Alright, now let's get on into the video. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why I did this trip. As you guys know, finishing college is a major stepping stone in life. It's kind of the end of your schooling phase for a lot of us. I know there's some people that go on to grad school, but for me and for a lot of other folks, this is it. Like college is the end of the road in terms of school. You don't get that 9 months of school and then 3 months of summer school break anymore. So I really wanted to take advantage of this last summer right after I graduated to do something really unique that I couldn't do nearly as easily ever again after I got a job. So that's the reason I guess I decided to do something a little abnormal. The reason I chose a road trip was because when you're in college, you grow and learn a lot, you change in a lot of ways. It's definitely really like foundational to who you are as a person. However, you're also so busy that you really don't get a chance to process all of the things you're learning, all the ways that you're growing, and really apply that growth to how you approach your future. So it's really important for me to be intentional about learning from all of the experiences I had in college and actually changing the way that I went into my life in the future accordingly based on what I had learned. So I felt like a road trip would be a good space to do that. One, because it would give me a lot of time to think, a lot of time in the car, a lot of time to talk with Anna. She's a great partner for this because we're both like very verbal processors. We like to think by talking. So we did a lot of that, but also it's constantly putting you in a new place with people you don't know. I literally knew one person on the trip. That was Anna, my road trip buddy. And so that really pushed me outside of my comfort zone and forced me kind of to think very deeply about life. It was very thought-provoking. I feel like change kind of always incites that in me, and we are changing spaces every single day pretty much in a new city every day. So that's the reason I chose a road trip as how to use my time right after school. Alright, so let's get on into how did we do this, kind of the logistics of it. So like I said before, it happened over 8.5 weeks from June through August. Right after I graduated, we road tripped in my car, which is a Prius, so thankfully saved a little bit of money on gas and hopefully helps the environment along the way just a little bit. We went through 31 states and 2 provinces. We started on the northern half of America and looped back down through the southern half, so that was our route. Big logistics question you might be wondering about is lodging. Where did you guys stay along the way? For us, we first identified all of the friends we had or family members we had around the US and made a list of those before we even planned our route. And then we kind of planned our trip around those places so that we would have A, places to stay, and B, get to spend time with people that we love. So that was probably like a third, maybe a little more than a third of our nights were spent with family or friends. And it was really heartwarming to see how gracious people were in opening their homes up to us, especially people we hadn't even met before, like parents of our college friends. We'd never met their parents before, but they welcomed us into their homes. One friend actually wasn't even there, and their parents let us stay with them. So that was really gracious. And we weren't staying with friends or family members. We were in Airbnbs and hostels for the most part. There was like 2 nights I think that we stayed in a cheap hotel, but other than that, it was always Airbnbs and hostels. Both of those were great because it really gave us the option to cook, which helped save money on food. The other nice thing about Airbnbs and hostels is they're a lot cheaper than hotels a lot of times for just as nice accommodations. Airbnbs are nice because you're staying with locals, so you get the local perspective on things. We got a lot of suggestions about what to do from our Airbnb hosts. And then hostels, on the other hand, are really nice because you don't really think of them as being a thing in the US. They're more of a European thing, but they are up and coming, and because of that, a lot of them are newer. So they're like pretty nice accommodations, like very clean spaces, very nice amenities. The only difference between that and the hotel is that you're sharing a bathroom and a bedroom with other people, and you can even get ones where you get your own room and you're just sharing a bathroom. That was really nice and helped us to save on costs. Now, in terms of food, that's another area where we saved a lot of money by cooking. So like I said before, we had a kitchen most nights, so we were able to cook. We did a lot of like rice, quinoa, veggies, throwing in a little meat here and there. That was our dinner a lot of nights, and then we did sandwiches and crackers and fruit and stuff for lunches. We'd pack it in the morning before we headed out and take it with us, so if we were on the road we could eat in the car, or if we were walking around a city, we'd find just a nice park or a cute spot in the town somewhere to just sit down and have lunch. Helpful for us to stay within our budget. Now, there were cities that we knew were going to be like foodie cities that were known for certain foods, and those we wanted to take advantage of. So we budgeted in ahead of time to allow ourselves to eat out in those cities or in those specific restaurants that were really famous or something like that. And that is a huge part of, the experience of getting to know the US and road tripping. And we wanted to take advantage of getting to know the cultures we were visiting through their food, especially if they were known for their foods. So definitely don't count that out. You guys are probably thinking this sounds pretty expensive, even though it sounds really fun. Is it worth it? I would say 100% yes, obviously. When it came down to it, we spent about $3,000 each on this road trip. And I calculated, I'll try to show you guys here the math, but $3,000 for 8.5 weeks is really not that bad when you compare it to how much it costs to just like live in an apartment on your own in one city. So what I'm doing right now, I'm spending about $750 a month on rent, just where I live. That's about the average. Probably an extra $100 on utilities, and then I'm spending, $20 a week on gas, $40 a week on groceries, maybe like $50 a week for entertainment, going out with friends, social life, and then just various other expenses here and there. It all adds up, and I've calculated that it's probably around $2,300 to $2,500 for you to live 8.5 weeks just in an apartment on your own. So to me, the extra $500 to get to live on the road and see so many different parts of the country and experience so many different things was 100% worth it. Obviously, that number of $3,000 can also vary a lot based on how you're planning the trip and what you're spending money on. So if you're choosing to stay in hotels or to camp, the lodging costs could go up and down. If you're eating out more or you're cooking all your meals, the food costs could go up or down. And then obviously we did some, like fun activities and tourist attractions and things like that. So depending on how many of those you're doing, you could spend more or less on, I guess, like entertainment or touristy things. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about where we went and some of our favorite places. I show you guys a few photos from the trip. As I started out in Virginia, and then I actually drove up to meet Anna in New York, which is where she lives. From there, we really officially started our road trip. We started by going up to Montreal in Canada, straight up from New York. And even though this is supposed to be a US road trip, we started out by going to Canada. But it was one of our favorite stops. We loved Canada. The culture there is really, really neat in Montreal. Next, we headed over to Toronto and then came back into the US through Detroit, Michigan. Headed over to Ann Arbor to visit some friends for a day. And then from there, we did a lot of zigzagging. Went all the way down through Indianapolis and Louisville, Kentucky to Nashville, one of my favorite spots. Stayed in an awesome hostel there. And then we went and looped back up through St. Louis to Chicago and then Milwaukee, where we stayed with one of our friends. And then I think the most northern point of our trip, I might have to double check a map, but I think the most northern point was Duluth, Minnesota, which was beautiful. It's right on Lake Superior. I'll try to find a picture and insert it here. From there, we headed west into South Dakota and started hitting a lot of the national parks. We started with Badlands National Park and then Mount Rushmore and Black Hills National Forest. Then we were down in Denver for a few days before heading over to Arches National Park in Utah. Then we went through Salt Lake City up to Yellowstone and Grand Teton, which are gorgeous. Grand Teton is not as well known, but it's right next to Yellowstone and it's gorgeous. It's really small, but it's a gorgeous park. And then we went through Boise, Idaho up to Seattle, Washington, which was the first point at which we had hit the West Coast. From there, we went literally straight down the coast, hit Portland, and then Crater Lake National Park, which was arguably one of my favorite views of the whole trip. It's gorgeous, y'all. The water is so reflective. I'm definitely showing you guys a photo in here of that spot because it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. From there, we went down to Auburn, California, Richmond, California, and then stopped in the Bay Area, which is where I have a lot of family. We stayed there for about 5 days just to catch up on sleep and really rejuvenate for the trip back. After that, which was kind of the midpoint, maybe a little over the midpoint, we headed west to Yosemite, another gorgeous national park, also well known for a good reason though, so if you haven't been, you should check it out. Definitely thought I died from dehydration on the hike up to Upper Yosemite Falls, but guys, the view is so worth it. After Yosemite, we headed to Santa Barbara and then Los Angeles and San Diego. Once we hit San Diego, we headed back east through Vegas to Bryce Canyon and Zion Canyon National Parks before heading to Grand Canyon and Sedona, Arizona. All of those are gorgeous. I'm really sad that I missed Antelope Canyon because that's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen photos of, so I cannot imagine being there in person. Unfortunately, the scheduling was just really difficult trying to get all those parks in. So if you've been, send me your photos because I love looking at pictures of that place. It's definitely still on my bucket list. From Sedona, we headed east to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Super cool culture there. And then through Texas, just the northern part, and then Oklahoma City. And then we hit Memphis, got to tour Graceland, where Elvis Presley's home, which was really interesting. I didn't really know much about his music or his life. Honestly, I wasn't really into pop culture growing up, so that was really neat to learn from a historical perspective. Then we headed through Atlanta and saw a Braves game there. I love baseball, so that was really fun. And then we went to Savannah and hit the East Coast again. Savannah, Georgia was beautiful. I'd never been there before, but it's super southern, very charming city. Then we headed through Charleston, which was so humid when we were there, guys. Unfortunately, it wasn't my best Charleston experience, but I've been back since, so it's all right. I do love the city. And then the last city before the end of the trip was Charlotte, North Carolina, where we stayed with some friends there. And then we were back in Virginia, which was the end of the trip. So I know that was a lot of cities. all that to say, one of the best experiences of my life. Not only did I really get that opportunity to do a lot of self-reflection like I wanted to do going into the trip, you know, that was one of the reasons why I went on this trip. I definitely feel like I found a lot of peace in some decisions that I made for my future. Didn't figure everything out by any means, but I definitely figured out a few of my next steps, especially involving where I was going to move right after I got back from the trip and which relationships I wanted to focus on following the trip. So that was something I was really grateful for. Blown out of the water by was just how much I feel like I got to know the US through this trip. The US is composed of so many different landscapes, so many different cultures and people and community groups. It's so big. You have such diversity in one country that I wish more people took advantage of the ease they have getting around. You know, like you don't have to bring your passport to go throughout the US. Man, guys, America just has some beautiful sights and some great people. It was so great to talk to all the different people we did, to get to spend time in people's homes and see the different ways that various friends of ours grew up, or even various like Airbnb hosts, strangers that we had never met before, to hear their stories, just to taste the different foods and see the different sites, the different national parks. The last thing is, it definitely solidified such a strong friendship with Anna. We're going to be friends forever. But to wrap it up, I would 100% recommend this. I would love to talk to you guys. I could talk about this for days. I'd love to talk to you guys about any other details of the trip that you're interested in. So let me know if you want to know more about certain places I went, or the route we took, or how we planned the trip, how we budgeted. I love talking about any and all of it. I also hope that my channel in the future can just be a place of community and positivity. You know, do life with you guys, share life with you guys. And I hope that you'll stick around for that. So if you're interested, it sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And comment down below to tell me what types of videos you'd like to see in the future, or if you want to hear any more about my road trip. All right, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, friends.